Yeah, it's a Wednesday edition, Hump Day Quickie edition of Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison, Wisconsin, as always, alongside the great producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn with me. Lots to get into today. Like, we're kind of in that weird period, right, where it's slowing down. We're coming out of the All-Star break. College basketball is heating up. The NFL's over and done with. But we're in the period where I think people are just bored out of their minds, man. And they're creating these unbelievable beefs all over the place. Like, we'll talk about one at the end of the show and what Strouf learned. But everybody's making a huge deal out of this Justin Fields unfollowing the Bears on Instagram thing. Because he's not going to play for the Bears next year. And I don't know why it's a big deal, but apparently it is. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. We will break down the beef between Doc Rivers and Austin Rivers and J.J. Redick and Pat Beverly and everybody involved in that one. We will do our first ever beef breakdown, looking at the tape and deciding the winner of the beef. We will do that in about 10 or so minutes. I do want to start, though, with the game last night that was at the Kohl Center, Wisconsin, getting back on the winning side of things with a 74-70 win over the Terps of Maryland. And look, I want to be excited. I want to be happy. I want to be fired up about this team. I'm just having a hard time doing that. And it's a nice win. It's a good win. But, like, it really wasn't that pretty. It wasn't a win you're driving home from the Kohl Center last night from and going, oh, man, this team's so back. This team's really, they look more like that number 6 ranking they had a few. Like, they don't look like that. They look like a team that probably deserves a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they might sneak out an early win against, and I don't know how good VCU is this year. I'm just going to use them for the example. Like, they might sneak out a win against VCU in the first round and then go home. And I'm just confused on what the heck happened here. Because this is a team, and I'm saying this after a win, keep in mind, but this is a team that I was very excited about a few weeks ago. It's a team that I thought could compete with anybody in the country, and we've talked about it time and time again with college hoops this year. Nobody's that good. UConn lost by 19 points last night on the road. Now, UConn's very good, but even they can get their asses kicked. Wisconsin has 2 wins in the month of February. It's over Ohio State, who fired their head coach after the game, and then went on to beat number 2 Purdue, by the way, just saying. And then last night over Maryland. And Maryland's a fine team. They're not very good. I don't know that they'll be a tournament team, let alone a very good tournament team if they are one. So, They've got dudes. I hate ripping on college kids, but there were some good things from this game yesterday, including the fact that Carter Gilmore didn't play. Look, I heard a good debate this morning on Wilde and Tausch around the Connor Essegian issue, right? He played 6.5 minutes or so, about 7 minutes in the win over Maryland last night. And this is a guy that started last year. This is a guy that averaged double figures a year ago as a freshman. And this year, his playing time has just gone completely downhill. But at least he gives you a little bit of a spark offensively. And the knock is always, oh, well, he can't play defense. The thing with this Badgers team is nobody can play defense. This is not a good defensive basketball team. So I still don't understand why Essegian is only seeing the floor for 7 minutes when he's probably a top 4 offensive player for you. He's certainly a top 2 when it comes to outside of the arc. Him, Max Klesmet. And Storr has a shot, but he's more of a get-after-the-rim guy. We saw him do that a few times last night in the win over Maryland. So we will see with this team. 4 games remaining for them in the regular season, and then it's Big Ten tournament time. And I'm just curious how it shakes out. By the way, VCU okay this year. They might be a tournament team, 9-4 on the year after further research. But with the Badgers, you've got a couple of games that you should win. You got a couple of games you probably won't win left. You go to Indiana next Tuesday. That might be a tough one on the road, but get a win. Then you host Illinois, who's ranked number 12 in the country this week. That's a tough game, but it's on your home floor. It's a Saturday. It's a noon game. There will be good energy, a lot of students there. Maybe you pull off an upset, and you're feeling good hosting Rutgers, and then you go to Purdue to end the regular season on selection, or the week prior to Selection Sunday, right before the Big Ten tournament starts. So I'm just looking for consistency offensively, and you're just looking for slight improvement in consistency defensively. But again, last night you allow 70 points. right? Every game in February, you've allowed at least 70 points, except the win over Ohio State, who, by the way, fired their head coach less than 24 hours after that game. You can't be allowing 70 points in Big Ten play, because what happens when you play an ACC school in the NCAA tournament? You're going to allow 100. You're going to allow 95 points in regulation. So I am okay with the Badgers. I think if they can go, 4 games left, if they go 2-2, and then they have an okay run in the Big Ten tournament, they're probably a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, which may get you to the Sweet 16. And Greg Gard could use that. I am by no means implying that Greg Gard's seat is hot, because as I've always said, I don't think it should be. I think he's a good college basketball coach. I think he is the answer at the University of Wisconsin, at least right now. But when it comes to what he needs to do in the postseason, he needs to get a couple of wins. Like, he needs to get out of the first weekend, because that's something he struggled doing. And this is the team that I think he's had the best shot to do it with, other than that Johnny Davis team a few years ago. But Chucky gets hurt in that second round game against Iowa State. So A.J. Storr brings you something that you haven't had since Johnny, and that is an offensive flamethrower. So if he can be consistent on the offensive end as well, I think you're in good shape. But Tyler Wall, good game for him last night. I've liked what I've seen out of him in his final year at Wisconsin. Consistency is the word when it comes to the Badgers. A little bit of NBA All-Star Game fallout. We will get to the real fallout, the real beef here momentarily. But I've been listening to a lot of national commentary, specifically on ESPN Radio's morning show on Sportsmanlike with our friend Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, Michelle Smallman. The three of them are all out on the Bucks. And you listen to national commentary across the board, it seems like a lot of people are out on the Bucks already, because you have some of this Doc stuff, which we'll get to in a second. You struggle with him since he's taken over. He coaches the All-Star game. Giannis and Dame meshing okay on the offensive end. Defensively, this team's a lot worse than they were a year ago. And they're having a tough time beating bad teams, right? I watched them play the Grizzlies last week. I legitimately did not know a single player on the floor at one point for the Memphis Grizzlies, and they lost that game. The Bucks did. As I said last week, I hope the little bit of an unplug helps you out. You take a breather, you take a rest, you come back, you regroup, you realize you should be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference, but you're certainly one of the best, and you should act like you're one of the best. You should be winning games. I'm still not out on the Bucks. I think a lot of people are. A lot of people are down on Milwaukee because of the lack of defense and the fact that they're losing to scrubs, literal scrubs. And they have two of the best players ever in Dame Lillard and Giannis. But it's a long season. It's a battle. It's a long-term thing. I still have faith that this is a team that can turn it around, just given the star power they have from top to bottom. And adding a guy like Pat Bev is a big, big, big addition on the defensive side off the bench. He's a guy that I think can provide a spark in the way he's been talking. I love that addition for the Bucks. They need somebody like him. You have a guy like Bobby Portis who provides the spark. You have Giannis, you have Dame, you have Chris Middleton when he's healthy. It's a team that should certainly be playing better than they are. No doubt about it. We all know that. But let's give them a second. Let's give them a second to figure it out, because I have faith they will. Hunter, I asked you, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, on a scale from 1 to 10, where is the panic meter on the Bucks? I would say from a national perspective, it seems like it's at an 8. For me, it's still at like a 3. Where are you at in terms of panic meter for the Milwaukee Bucks as it stands coming out of the All-Star break?
I'm still sitting at an 8 because I want to see them prove it. Like, that's my thing. If they can actually string together a couple of good games in a row, then I'll be like, oh, okay, fine. They're going to be okay come playoff time. But they just have never done it. And that's my problem. Even when they had Griffin in. Like, people are like, oh, firing Griffin was clearly a mistake. Like, they weren't consistent under him. Like, they didn't do anything well game in and game out. So until they can show me that they do something regularly, I'm freaking out and worried that this is the beginning of the end of having Giannis in Milwaukee. And then, my dad had to watch Kareem leave. And now I'm going to have to watch Giannis leave. And probably Giannis will go to L.A. and break my heart, because that's how it works.
Relax.
No, this is what happens as a Bucks fan. It's what's going to happen.
Hunter.
He got a title like Kareem, and then he's going to go and leave and win more and become incredible.
You get very excited about getting ahead of yourself. He's still under contract for 3 more years. He's going to be here. Now, does this season...
Contracts mean nothing in the NBA.
You're right, but he's going to be here. He's going to be here. Unless Dame is like, peace out after 1 season, which I don't think happens, I think he's here for 3 years. Now, could you make the case, in which I think you are kind of making, that this year, visually, optically, is a waste of Giannis's prime?
Yes.
I would hear it.
As was last year.
Last year, yes, definitely. This year, it's just still too early to tell. But as it looks, as it stands right now, through whatever the math is on that 56 games, and the Bucks in 3rd place of the Eastern Conference, yes, you could make the case that Giannis's prime years are being wasted a little bit in Milwaukee. But does dashing to L.A. solve those problems? No. For Kevin Durant, maybe it did when he went to Golden State, but what has he done since? Giannis doesn't want to be KD. He wants to be the first Giannis. And he's off to a really good start with that. 2 league MVPs, obviously the championship run, and they can still win the championship this year. Right? Just because there's a little bit mid-season dysfunction and a coaching change does not mean this isn't a championship caliber team, because they clearly are. They have championship caliber talent, and I know this isn't a popular opinion right now, but they have a championship level coach. They have a guy that has won a title. They have a guy that has won at the highest of levels. Now, he hasn't done it for a while, but he's capable of doing it. He has a good basketball mind in Doc Rivers. Giannis is still Giannis. Dame is still Dame. How do you fix the defensive issues? That's priority 1. But this is a team that's going to rattle off a nice winning streak out of the All-Star break. Book it. Mark it. You heard it here first. What's their schedule out of the break here?
I want them to do that, and I hope that they do. But there's just, again, it's nothing they've shown has shown that this team, as it's currently constructed, is capable of doing that.
I don't think they'll lose again until March 4th. I don't think they'll lose a game until March 4th.
Was that like 3 games?
5 games.
Oh, okay.
They go on the road, which this is a tough game, nationally televised on Friday out of the break, at the Wolves, who are in first place of the Western Conference. Now, that's their first game out of the break. I think they win that. Then they go to Philly. I think they win that. Joel Embiid's still hurt. Then they host Charlotte. Then they go to Charlotte, and then they go to Chicago. I think they win all 5 of those, and then they go, or then they host the Clippers, and I think they lose that game. Revenge game for Doc Rivers of sorts.
I honestly think they only beat Charlotte. Like
both times? You think they go 2 and 3 in that stretch?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're really down on them.
Well, it's just I've seen what Minnesota can do.
Yeah, they're a good team.
They're so good.
They are a good team.
And it would just be like the Bucks to then lose. Like they'll lose a close game to Minnesota, then they're going to follow that up and get blown out by Philly. I think was what you said they had next. Like yep. That's just what this team is right now, and I want them to prove me wrong. I hope they go 5-0 in that stretch, but again, I don't think they will.
Okay. Time will tell, right? And the good news is there's still about 30 games left in the regular season. They're going to be a playoff team. They're going to have the opportunity to figure it out. It's easier said than done for sure. But when you have a team that has talent to this level, maybe I'm too optimistic, and you're probably too pessimistic, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, which is usually how it goes with us. Probably. I think that's why we make a good team. But I can't subscribe to, hey, this team's just not going to figure it out. They're just going to fully collapse. I just don't see how that happens. If Doc Rivers is worth a damn, they have to figure this out. And I'm not saying they're going to win the title. I'm not saying they're going to get to the NBA Finals. But they're going to win a couple of playoff series. They're going to get this thing back in order. They might even climb back up to second place in the Eastern Conference. I think it's the Celtics to lose. The Bucks are 8.5 games back. But I still think there's a way they can find their way back into second place and still be a really damn good team. So we will see what happens with the Bucks going forward. But a lot of commentary this week, and it bugs me because I know that's what we have to do, right? We have to be very definitive. We have to be very opinionated. We have to know, what we think is going to happen over the course of the next 2 months, 3 months as we lead up to the NBA playoffs. I just don't understand how we're so out on the Bucks, who are clearly still a good team. You could be out for this reason, though. It is my honor to introduce to you our first ever beef breakdown, where I am going to give you the evidence of what's happened over the course of the last 48 hours, and we're going to declare a winner between these 4 parties: J.J. Redick, Doc Rivers, Pat Beverly, Austin Rivers. All of them had something to say about one another over the course of the last 48 hours. So I want to start with the origin of said beef. And this is when Doc Rivers was on Sirius XM's NBA radio. And Doc essentially was asked, hey, man, what were your conversations like when you were brought in as the Bucks head coach midseason? You were working for ESPN. You get the call that the Bucks are interested in you. Doc Rivers says this to Sirius XM NBA radio.
Personally, I'll be honest. I told our owners when they called, I said, I think I don't understand why you're doing this.
Oh, no.
And they said, one of the things they said was, well, it doesn't matter. We've done it now. And we want you. And so that was a tough one. That's where you had the hesitation.
That's where you had the hesitation. But also, Hunter, was it you yesterday that was like, didn't he conspire to get Adrian Griffin fired? Was that you that said that?
No, that was Ryan Wollersheim. While I do enjoy conspiracy theories, like it's just a wild one that he somehow was advising the team and like feeding them false information.
He knew Adrian Griffin, but you're right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That can't be true. So JJ Redick then, who played for Doc Rivers, of course, in the NBA during his time with the Clippers, as well as his time in Philly, I believe. I might be wrong on that. Nonetheless, I know he played for him. That's the important part here. He said this on First Take yesterday after hearing this clip. First Take did not play this clip, but J.J. Redick had opinions on it. Here's J.J. Redick on First Take yesterday.
Side note real quick. No one's going to react to Doc's audio there. We've been here 7 minutes since we showed that audio. Nobody's going to react to Doc's audio?
Do you want me to get it repeated for you?
He's doing the toughest time. We don't have to repeat it.
I can repeat it.
I've seen the trend now. I've seen the trend for years.
What's the trend?
The trend is always making excuses. Doc, we get it. Taking over a team in the middle of the season is hard. It's hard. We get it. Just like getting traded in the middle of the season is hard for a player. We get it. But it's always an excuse. It's always throwing your team under the bus. They lose to Memphis. Oh, it's his players' fault. Memphis was playing G League guys and two-way guys. And then you look at his quotes over the weekend. Now he wants to take credit for the James Harden trade to the Clippers working out. He wants credit for that. There's never accountability with that guy. There's never accountability.
Well, let me say a couple of things.
So J.J. Redick goes right after Doc Rivers, his former head coach. Says there's no accountability. There's no accountability. So the newest Milwaukee Buck, Pat Beverley, decides, hey, this is a good time for me to shine right here, right? Maybe bump the podcast numbers up a little bit, which we'll hear from in a little bit. Pat Bev Pod from Barstool Sports. So the newest Buck stands up for his new head coach by tweeting this out. This man, Doc, actually saved your career, started you when no one else wanted to, and you retire and go on TV and say that. At J.J. Redick, he tags him. J.J. Redick fires back. Pat, my guy, I had a 4-year offer with a player option for the same money to be a starter for a different team. F out of here with, quote, saved my career. So now J.J. Redick is doubling down on dissing Doc. He's doubling down on the fact that Doc Rivers doesn't take accountability for anything. Doc Rivers, by the way, has not won an NBA championship in 16 years. Doc Rivers has blown some serious series in the NBA playoffs. Doc Rivers has had a serious problem winning in the big game. And J.J. Redick, now a commentator and a podcaster and an analyst who I think, by the way, does a terrific job for ESPN. I'm a big fan of J.J. Redick. Think he might be missing the mark here, but we'll get to that in a second. This is where the beef takes a twist, because I didn't know this guy worked for ESPN. I didn't know this guy wasn't in the league anymore, but I certainly knew this guy was related to Doc Rivers. You remember him from his time at Duke. You remember for his time in the NBA. Austin Rivers, a name I haven't heard in a minute, all of a sudden pops up on my ESPN TV screen last night. And he responds to J.J. Redick taking shots at Pops. Austin Rivers on ESPN last night.
First off, I don't feel responsible to take up for my dad. He's a grown man. He could do his own thing. But in this regard, I just simply don't agree with it. For someone who's not accountable, he seems to always be held responsible, considering he's the guy that's always fired when things don't go right. He got fired in the bubble for a 3-1 lead versus the Denver Nuggets, which in half his team didn't want to be there. They had players saying that their mind wasn't there. They had guys leave. That happened. Then he gets fired for losing to a team that was favored over him, which was the Celtics last year. It seems like he's always responsible. It's just as strange coming from JJ. And I have some love for JJ. You're my dookie. You know that. You're my bro. I love you. It's just your best years were with the Clippers. I don't think he saved your career. I appreciate you, Pat, but I don't think it. I mean, this just seems a little bit weird. They're 3-7. Dame has missed most of those games. Middleton's missed a lot of those games. They haven't even had their full team yet. We'll see what happens. The pressure is there. They do have to perform.
They do have to perform, Austin Rivers. That one was weird to me because, like, you could tell he was pissed off at J.J. Redick, but he wasn't going to be full-blown pissed off on national television at J.J. Redick. He goes, "You're my dookie. You're my dookie," which is, by the way, that's also like a phrase for poop, which I didn't like, right? Because you take a dookie, right? And I thought it was weird that he called him as dookie, and he said he loved him in the middle of calling him out. But Austin Rivers getting involved here was the plot twist I didn't see coming.
Yeah, he also was trying to, like, still be, like, nice to everybody. Like, just take a side.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. Just pick one of the 3 sides in this that you want to take. Really, it's actually 2 sides. Like, either stick up for your dad all the way or, you know, just be like, yeah, he's right. He's not taking full accountability, and go with JJ. Don't try to be like, you're still my boy. Like, we went to the same school. Like, dude, just stand up for him, own it, and just go with it.
And I like that he started it with, you know, my pop's a grown man. I don't need to stand up for him.
But then I'll stand up for him.
Then I'll stand up for him, right? But he doesn't agree with the opinion. We give the last word to Pat Beverly, the newest Buck, who recorded his podcast last night. You'll see a guy by the name of Roan, legendary battle rapper, by the way, Roan. And then you'll see Richard Jefferson, the former NBA star, also an ESPN guy, in this clip. Pat Bev released today on his podcast, the Pat Bev Pod on Barstool Sports, pretty much just saying this about Doc Rivers and some of the comments that were made by J.J. Redick over the weekend, putting a cap and a bow on our beef breakdown.
But we're not speaking about relationships or all that. We're speaking about his words versus the actual reality. And you go accountability. So should Doc be held accountable for playing you that 3-1 series when the Clippers walked y'all last? I mean, when the Rockets, when we walked y'all last down 3-1?
Ooh.
Should he be accountable and be like, you know what, let me get J.J. Redick off James Harden? Like, J.J. Redick wasn't playing basketball. He was team bench, team bench, team bench. Feel me? Wasn't getting a lot of playing time. Early days in Orlando. And I'm not here to try to on J.J. Redick.
But you're saying that he's being disloyal to Doc, a guy who is loyal to him.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
All he's saying. All he's saying is J.J. Redick got cooked by James Harden. All he's saying is that J.J. Redick didn't belong anywhere in the hardwood when he was playing for Doc Rivers. All he's saying is he's being disloyal. I like it. I like it from Pat Bev. And I said this when the Bucks traded for him. This dude just doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what anybody but Pat Bev thinks. And I like that about Pat Bev. He's in your face. He's going to have your back. He's a good teammate. And in this case, he's a good teammate for his head coach. So the winner of this beef, in my opinion, is Pat Beverly. I think he stuck his nose where it didn't belong and he won it. How's that sound? Pat Bev didn't belong in this beef, and he won the damn beef. Doc looks bad with all the interviews he's done in the last week. J.J. Redick, I don't want to say he looks bad because he's paid to have an opinion. But there were a couple other clips I left out of this where J.J. Redick was like doubling down, but then also complaining that people don't want to be educated. They just are clicking on people yelling, and he's doing the thing that he always hates again. Anyway, not going to get too tied up in that minutia. And then the Austin Rivers part of this was just weird. It was just a weird throw-in added video to this beef breakdown. So I think Pat Bev wins this beef, even though he doesn't belong in said beef, Hunter.
Yeah, he absolutely does. He's the guard version of P.J. Tucker for the championship team.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
for
he's
sure.
just a dog, and I love it. JJ needs to just kind of shut his mouth about it, though, because everybody's right. Like, I'm a Duke fan. I love the guy.
Everybody's right.
But he bounced around the league so much because all he was a spot-up shooter, and that's all he did. So teams were like, okay, that's all we need you for, and then once we feel like we have it somewhere else, you're gone.
No.
Like, you barely stuck around in the league, and I know I never played, but, like, come on, man. Like, let's chill just a little bit here.
Yeah.
And don't sit here and complain about what it is you claim to hate, but then you just do it anyway. Like, the NBA is the greatest soap opera in the world, and this is just proving it.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm glad you said that, Hunter, because I view it like this. the NFL is the best overall league. The NFL is the best, stories to follow throughout the course of the year. But when it comes to player personalities on display and beefs and opinions and podcasts and all that stuff, nothing's better than the NBA. There's always a beef, right? Like I was on TikTok last night and I saw a clip of Draymond Green explaining how the one guy he'd never want to play with in the NBA ever is Chris Paul. And who is he telling this to? Chris Paul, his now teammate with the Golden State Warriors. So I absolutely love that. It is the greatest soap opera when it comes to sports. You're absolutely correct on that. Like, it beats the WWE. Sorry, WWE. You know I love you. But the NBA is just better than that when it comes to pure entertainment value of beefs and smack talking and getting in each other's faces and having ridiculous opinions that we're looking at here. This beef, though, is the epitome of everybody is so damn bored in the middle of the All-Star break. We have nothing to do or talk about. Let's just start beefs with each other for no particular reason at all, except Doc Rivers said some stupid stuff on SiriusXM, which we just played the one clip. But can we actually run that back with Doc Rivers one more time? What he said to SiriusXM NBA about how he landed the job and how it was brought up to him, because this is bananas to me that an NBA head coach would go on a national platform and say this.
Personally, I'll be honest. I told our owners when they called, I said, I think I don't understand why you're doing this, And they said, one of the things they said was, well, it doesn't matter. We've done it now, and we want you. And so that was a tough one. That's where you had the hesitation.
And you'll notice at the beginning there, he starts to say something and then pivots to, I don't know why you're doing this. Or I don't know why you did this. I don't know why are you doing this? And it seemed like he was maybe going to say, I think you made a mistake, or I think you made the wrong decision, but he stopped himself and then pivoted. So it's just all bad.
It also almost says to me like he hasn't been paying attention to the league while somehow being a color commentator for ESPN.
The lead color commentator, yeah.
Yeah, like, dude, everyone knew this was going to happen for about a month. Like, what are you saying? Oh, why are you doing this? Like, everyone could tell he lost the team. Adrian Griffin was not going to continue to be the head coach of the Bucks. You're like, why are you doing this? Like, come on, stop it. We know why you're doing it. We all know why. Don't play dumb just to try and be nice to a guy that you're maybe going to talk to 3 more times in your life. Yeah. Like, stop it.
Oh, I like that take. Maybe 3 more times.
Well, it's true. Like, I don't get why. Like, it's the same thing with the guys being like, I love you. Like, just say what you're going to say.
Yeah.
If you actually, like, care about the person, then off air, you're going to reach out to them. You're going to actually talk to them to their face, or you're going to give them a call, and you're going to hash it out that way if it's actually an issue. Don't sit here and pretend like you're friends with everybody and then just be like, oh, okay, you're my buddy, but now I'm going to throw you under the bus. Like, come on.
I'll give you that.
Just stop it.
All right, I'll give you that. Thank God basketball returns this week. Because I'm done with this. I mean, it was entertaining. It was fun. It was stupid. But thank God basketball is back this week. All right, let's pivot over to the Green Bay Packers before we wrap up the show. I've been thinking, which is always a scary thought.
Oh,
yeah, right. Oh, always a scary thought when I'm deep in my mind. But we're a couple weeks removed now, or just about, from the NFL season coming to a close after the Kansas City Chiefs back-to-back Super Bowl wins. And now we have to start thinking about what's coming. We are less than a month away from free agency opening. Luckily, the Packers don't have to worry about a franchise tag or anything, but that's coming up quick. Free agency, I believe, is either March 13th or March 14th. It officially opens, but the legal tampering period is a couple days before that. So we're only a couple weeks away from free agency. And then, of course, in April, we have the draft. We have the NFL Combine coming up. And there is a big decision to make, which we'll talk about, with Jordan Love and his contract extension that is impending and will, I mean, it's all but been confirmed. It will be happening once the Packers are able to in the month of May. So I have drafted up my top 5 priorities for the Green Bay Packers in this offseason. Between now and the start of the regular season, either the Thursday or Sunday after Labor Day, what are the biggest priorities and needs and things that the Packers need to do between now and then? Starting with number 5. You need to make the hard decisions. And you need to make them quicker than possible, or quicker than not. The biggest one being the left tackle, David Bakhtiari. Do you move on from him? Do you keep him? Do you attempt to trade him, which, by the way, I don't know what you're getting for him? I think you got to move on from him. I think it's time to say, all right, David, it's been fun. You were great while you were here, but this is all she wrote for your tenure in Green Bay. And we all love David Bakhtiari. He's a great Packer. He was a fan favorite. He was a cult hero. But that's the big decision that needs to be made, and I think it needs to be made sooner than later. And we saw some of the reports come out earlier in the week from Matt Schneidman, which really wasn't a report. It was more an opinion that he thinks the Packers will move on from David Bakhtiari soon. David Bakhtiari shoots back on Twitter and says, if I get fired for this, I blame you, blah, 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 blah. That's the big, hard decision. There's a couple other ones, though. Preston Smith is one, right? Do you restructure? Do you move on? Do you bring him back? And then A.J. Dillon, who's an unrestricted free agent. He was actually here in Madison last night at the Badger game. Do you bring him back? I vote no. I don't think it makes any sense to. Make the hard decisions is priority number 5 for the Packers sooner than later. Number 4 is addressed, and it goes hand in hand with the moving on from A.J. Dillon opinion I have, which is you got to figure out what you're doing behind and after Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is under contract for next year with the Packers, and Brian Gutekunst did confirm in his end-of-season press conference Aaron Jones will be back next year after having the most ridiculous 5-game stretch of his career to end the season, the last 3 regular season games and then the 2 playoff games against Dallas and San Francisco. He's terrific. And you see, and it was on full display in those 5 games, what a different dynamic this offense, this really young offense aside from Aaron Jones essentially, what a different dynamic they have when he is on the field and when he's efficient like he was in those 5 games. He is a really good running back at his best, but he is getting to that gray area, age 30 season. What do you do with him? He's back, but you got to figure out whether or not A.J. Dillon's back. I would assume not. And then what do you do behind him? Do you find his replacement in the draft? Do you spend his 2nd or 3rd round pick on a running back who is your number 2 guy and then eventually replaces him as your lead guy? The Aaron Jones situation is interesting. It's good news he'll be back, but what do you do if he gets hurt again, right? He missed a lot of games this year. A.J. Dillon wasn't it. The offense wasn't clicking when he was out. You've got to find a viable backup option for Aaron Jones. And I don't think it's on the open market, given the running back situation we had last year with the kind of the Zoom meeting with Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, etc., Austin Eckler, talking about the state of the running back position. It's clear you need to go get one in the draft. Do that, figure out who your backup is, and figure out who your guy after Aaron Jones is. That's looking ahead, but it is a this season priority. Priority 3 is beef up the defense, specifically at the safety, cornerback, and linebacker positions. I think those will mostly be addressed in the draft. But you cannot ignore that, and I don't think Goody will. If Goody has taught us anything during his now, oh boy, this requires math, 7 years as the general manager, 6 years as the general manager of the Green Bay Packers, the guy loves addressing defense in the draft. He has made a total of, I think, 8 first-round draft picks during his tenure as GM. 7 of them have been spent defensively. 1 of them was offense. That was Jordan Love. The other 7 first-round picks he's made all defense. Jair, Darnell, Rashawn, etc. You need to address more defense in the draft early and often. Early and often. Safety, cornerback, linebacker. More concerned about safety and linebacker, but cornerback, everybody needs a cornerback, it seems, this year. Everybody needs a cornerback. Like legitimately, I think 30 of the 32 teams could use an upgrade at that position. So it's going to be a commodity in the draft. And the Packers have a late pick. Do they move up? Maybe. Do they take the late swings that Goody's been pretty darn good at the last 2 years? Yeah, I would guess so. At the cornerback position specifically. Safety and linebacker, though, need severe upgrades, definitely at safety, and you need to see them beef up the defense in the offseason. Priority number 2, we talked about it briefly. It's an obvious one. It is the most obvious one. Extend your guy. I think it's May 1 when they actually can do it because he already signed a contract extension. You can't sign a contract extension twice within the same calendar year, 365 days, actually 366. Happy leap year, everybody. Do we have a leap year show? No, it's in 8 days. We're off on leap day.
We could do as Tausch likes to say, a digi special, digi only, even though we're already digi.
We're already digi only.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we could do a special leap day thing.
Yeah, we're going to have to. I like Leap Day. I don't know what I'm going to wear that day. I'm going to need to bring a cool outfit in. Frogger? Anybody got a Frogger costume laying around?
Or just a frog? Why are you going right to the video game?
Because it's a great video game.
Well, it is a great video game. I'm confused why you can't say a very common animal and just go a frog because all frogs leap, but you go right to the video game. Like, the video game has nothing to do with leap year or leap day.
You're getting me off track, Hunter.
I know. I'm very concerned about this. Like, I don't understand why your brain went there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
My brain is a very strange place, and like we said at the beginning of this segment, it's scary that I was thinking and wrote down my thoughts for once. But anyway, priority 2 is definitely extend Jordan Love. I don't know how much more I need to say that. He proved to you he's the guy. He's going to be the face of your franchise for at least the next couple of years, if not long term. That's the part that still has to be figured out, but he clearly is playing the part and playing it extraordinarily well. He was better than every quarterback in the second half of last season. He was awesome in his first playoff game. He is the dude. So get it on paper, get him extended, do what it takes, make him the face of your franchise, put a ring on it, as we like to say in the dating world. Priority number 1 for me, for the Green Bay Packers this offseason, for the first time, really, in Brian Gutekunst's tenure as the general manager of the Green Bay Packers, I want him taking a big swing in free agency. I don't know if that's Patrick Queen. I don't know if that's Antoine Winfield. I don't know who it is, but I want Brian Gutekunst taking a big swing in free agency on the defensive side of the football. I don't care what position it is. Shoot, if it's D-line, I'm happy, even though I feel pretty good about that room. But with a new defensive scheme coming in with Jeff Hafley as the defensive coordinator, take a big swing. Show your commitment to winning now. Go get a high-level free agent. You're going to have some money to play with. You'll probably have a little bit more if you move on from David Bakhtiari. The dead cap cuts in half if you cut him before a certain date. I want the Packers taking a big swing in free agency. That's priority 1 for me. I think the biggest swing, in Hunter, my memory's iffy, but I would like to say the biggest swing that Goody's made in an offseason is Zadarius Smith, one of his first years as the GM.
I mean, if you say financially, yes. For my brain went to, like, trying to see if Devin Funchess would be the guy. Like, you go a hypothetical,
People
like,
forget about that one.
Yeah.
Because he sat out the 2020 season and then never played a snap. That's right.
Yeah. So, like, if you count that as being a swing.
I don't.
Okay. So then, yeah, it's Zadarius.
Yeah. I would love to see him just, if it's Antoine Winfield, which I don't think he'll be a Packer, but I see he's on our video stream. That's the picture he used. Good choice.
I mean, I figured it kind of fits the safety spot, and because I'm a draft nerd, that might be a hard one for them to fill.
Yeah, it's down this year, I'm hearing, in the draft.
Yeah.
I'm not into my draft prep yet. I'll get there. I'm just not there yet. I'm intrigued to see when they address safety, but maybe free agency is the right to go. And Antoine Winfield's a big name if he doesn't end up back in Tampa. Patrick Queen is an inside linebacker who's going to be very expensive. I don't think the Packers land him, but I would love to hear that they're in on the conversations, which we always hear about the Packers.
If they somehow land him with him and Quay Walker then at inside linebacker, that might be the best linebacker room.
Fire me up.
If they can somehow figure out a way to make it work.
Well, San Francisco probably still wins, but Dre Greenlaw obviously tearing his Achilles in the Super Bowl. We'll see when he's back. So those are my 5 top priorities for the Packers this offseason. Make the hard decisions sooner rather than later. Address the Aaron Jones situation, whether that's his backup / replacement or both. Could be the same guy. Number 3 is beef up the defensive group, specifically safety, corner, and linebacker. Number 2 is sign Jordan Love to his extension. And number 1 is take a big swing in free agency. All right, you learn something new every day. I learned something new today. It's time now for What Strouf Learned as we wrap up the show. And it's simple today. I referenced it at the top. Justin Fields on the St. Brand Bros podcast, Equanimous and Monra. They do a podcast. Justin Fields was the guest today. Episode just came out as we went live. I saw this clip right before we went live. That's why we don't have it for you, but I will sum it up for you. Justin Fields asked why he unfollowed the Chicago Bears on Instagram. And this goes back to the theme of today's show. We're all just bored. Good Lord, get a life. But Justin Fields unfollows the Bears on Instagram. Here's his reasoning why. He said, I'm just trying to unplug. I unfollowed the NFL too. It's the offseason. I don't want to see football on my feed. I actually think it's a decent excuse. But then he takes a shot at Equanimous. And I actually have a story behind this, which is a wild one. And I don't think I've told it before. So it's a fun one. So he then says, hey, EQ, you know this well. Like when you unfollow a girl on Instagram, but you're still into her? Yeah, that's what this is like. I unfollowed the Bears on Instagram, and I'm still into her. But I know the girl that Justin Fields is referencing for Equanimous St. Brown.
What? How do you... No. Like, first, like, just throwing the guy under the bus, but then how do you know this girl?
So I guess I can't dive too in without revealing her identity.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not going to do that. But let's just say I'm friends with her on Facebook and Instagram. I follow her on Instagram. Apparently Equanimous doesn't. And they've been off and on for about 4 years, since he was a Packer. Like one day she's posting about how single she is and how thrilled she is to be single. And then the next day she's posting about how in love with him she is. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. She's a lovely girl. She's a Packers fan. So we like her. We like her. We're much more team her than we are team EQ. It's immature to unfollow somebody and then still try to date them. Like that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like the beef stuff earlier. Like, just commit to it. If you're gonna be like against them, just go all the way with it. Don't sit here and go back and forth and try to play both sides of it. Like, if you're not into them, just be done with it.
Yeah.
Don't sit here and keep coming back, because then, oh, shocker, it's just gonna end with heartbreak and frustration and anger. Like, what are we doing?
Professional athletes in a toxic relationship? What a concept.
I know. I'm shocked.
What a concept. It's like keeping up with the Kardashians taught us nothing. We're back with you Friday, preview of the weekend, doing a little bit more catch-up on all things Bucs and NFL and the Packers offseason, all the in-betweens. We will have a guest. We might have two guests. We're all going to find out together. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Big thanks to Hunter Vaughn, Tiny Hands, for running the show, making us sound good, making us look good. As always, appreciate you chiming in on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Make sure you vote in the Badger Club Burger Bracket over on Twitter at ESPN Madison. We're going from 64 to 1 restaurants in the Madison area trying to figure out which has the best burger. You can vote for 4 more today over on Twitter at ESPN Madison. The 4 in discussion today, that poll up for 48 hours, by the way. Ope House Pub in Barneville, Tootsie's in Dane, Tully's 2 in Monona, and Villa Tap in Madison. I was there not too long ago. Didn't have a burger, though. Just had a Badger Club. But I was there not too long ago, right up the road from us here at the Everlight Solar Studio. Villa Tap in Madison. Another poll in the field as well from yesterday that you can still vote in for about another 23 hours. Bristled Boar in Middleton, Rigby's in Madison, Rookies in Mazamani, which is awesome, by the way. They have a field in the back. Very cool place. And Tipsy Cow downtown, which is leading the charge right now in that poll. But you still got about 23 hours to vote in it. If you have an opinion on that, go to those places. Support local business. Support local brewery. Enjoy a Badger Club, the best damn beer in the world, and the best beer to pair with a burger. You can do that at any of those locations or literally any place in the area, but make sure you keep it locked on Twitter at ESPN Madison. Vote in the Mr. Relevant Badger Club Burger Bracket, counting you down until the week before Selection Sunday, you're deciding the best burger in the Madison area. That does it for us today. We'll talk to you on Friday. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.